Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. This is episode 268, and we're going to talk about how I taught my kids English, which I really didn't. I mean, they learned it on their own, but that's the story. It was a long day for me today. I'm tutoring kids on my free periods, and even after school, starting today, I started tutoring a kid after school, took him home. Mostly because so behind, and I just can't let them stay behind. And so I'm just, for their sake, for their future, I'm trying to do all this extra work. I don't know how much longer I can do it, but there's a Christmas break is coming up, so hopefully I can, get over this thing I have with my voice and recharge my batteries. So it was a long day. I had an interview for a new job, and I'm just really too tired to uh, scroll through X and try to see what's going on in the world today. And I just don't have time to listen to my normal podcast. So I thought I would share a story from the past. My family, ever since I was a lot younger, we would take an annual trip to this destination near our home. It's basically a private garden that used to belong to a billionaire. And now it's something that people go see because the flowers there are incredible. So a while ago, when two of my kids were about 3 or 5 years old, 3 and 5 years old, everyone was taking their turn to go to the bathroom. And so I was outside with two of my kids, and they were running around having fun. But, they were running around this bench where an older guy was seated. So I told my kids, hey, cut that out, just calm down, sit down, and stop bothering this guy. And so the older guy, he was much more older, he came up to me and he said, hey, I just want to congratulate you and I appreciate the fact that you're teaching your kids how to speak English because there are a lot of people who come to this country who don't bother doing that. And, I would tell that story whenever race issues would come up and it was somehow relevant, but I would tell that story in class. And when I got to this point, um, you heard a lot of students gasp, like they're like, oh, "You're kidding," that kind of thing. And then they remembered that it was my class and it was me that was talking to them, and so they waited to hear what I said to him in reply. And I said, "Thank you. I do my best." And he turned around and sat back down. And on the way home, I told my wife that story, and we had a good laugh. Because it's funny that someone would come up to us and think that it was a big deal to teach our kids English. I mean, my struggle was teaching them Korean, right? To be able to be bilingual. Also, I mentioned this before, but if you're able to master, I mean, really master another language, you also, what comes with it is the grammar, which is one way, a very difficult way to get another perspective on things in the world, right? So I'm all about trying to get more subjectivities to be able to switch subjectivity, to be able to change your perspective, to see things from a different point of view, um, for a variety of reasons. The most important one is to move past a problem, to resolve a problem, to be able to see that a problem is not a problem at all. So, going back to the older white gentleman, he spoke from his subjectivity, right? His experiences told him, hey, here's an Asian family. They're speaking in English. And from his experience, his understanding, his encounters, this was a really good thing. It was pleasing to him. And so, how do I respond to what he thought was a compliment? right? Whether you understand it as being wrong, offensive, or whatever that is besides the point, right? He thought he was going to, compliment me. Do I turn around and yell at him? Do I, scream at him and tell him how racist that is? Do I tell him, hey, look, dude, you have to listen to me, take my class, spend 14 weeks learning learning that what you just said was not the best way of expressing his thoughts, if he were to express them at all. No, that's not my thing. That's not what I would do. I mean, judging by his age, he could have been a Korean War veteran, right? And so here he is, risked his life, fight for my people. And what do? I scream and yell at him. Nah, I'm not going to do that. And what makes it really easy is to remember his intent. His intent was to make me feel good. And by making me feel good, he's going to feel good. Hey, he'll go home and say, "Hey, honey, I complimented this Asian I saw at the place we went to today," right? If he was applying for a job at my company, maybe I'd pass, or maybe I would explain to him, "Yeah, we don't say those things at this job." Maybe if I was applying for his company and he was my boss, I would ask, how much does the job pay? It's likely that I'm going to hear this kind of subjectivity every day at work. And so in order for it to make it my worth my while, I have to know how much the job is paying. If it's paying minimum wage, forget it. But if it's paying a lot of money, sure, why not? I mean, it's not a big deal. It doesn't even really bother me. And after a while, you know, the encounter with me becomes part of his subjectivity, and he won't say that again. Or he'll tell this story of how he made these assumptions and how his assumptions weren't accurate, right? So I have a theory that why is it that people started to take offense? Because people say this kind of stuff all the time. So when did it all of a sudden become offensive to go up and say, "Hey, you speak English really well"? So I have a theory about this. There was a scholar somewhere in the United States once upon a time said, "You know what? I'm tired of answering this question. In fact, I'm going to say I'm offended when someone asks me what kind of Asian I am," right? I mean, where do you get off asking a question like that? I'm clearly American. Or they'll say, "I'm tired of people talking about my accent or my lack of accent." And so, you know what? I'm going to say it's offensive to do that. So, someone got bored or got tired of answering the question and decided to write or say somewhere, like at a academic conference or something like that, that it was offensive to assume that someone would have an accent, right? So, if someone looks at me and says, "Okay, that guy has an accent," okay. Well, that's an assumption they make based on their own personal experiences, that every time they talk to someone my age who looks like an Asian, they had a thick accent. Okay. But, and if that's all that that person has ever experienced, then of course they're going to make that assumption. Is it a racist thing? No, it is something that is based on his empirical, right? What the experiences that he himself has had. How's that racist? How's that offensive, right? To go on the data that you have and then proceed to behave in this way or that. So it's that kind of thing. So basically, what you're uh, um, criticizing, what you're trying to shame, is the lack of experiences. And if you're busy working all day long, or you live in an area that doesn't get a whole lot of Asians or whatever, then you're not going to be able to have a wide range of experiences. How does that become the basis of hate. It just doesn't make any sense at all. But it does, if you are that scholar that wrote that, everyone gives you props, right? Everyone acknowledges you as being insightful. Hey, you gave us another reason to get angry, to hate people, to yell at people, to scream at people, to ruin people's day. That basically is how that scholar is received for floating that idea. Otherwise, no one would get offended, right? I mean, come on. It's like if you look at me, right, you always have to kind of be careful. What if you assumed that I could speak English and I didn't speak English at all, right? Should I get offended that you assume that because I live in America and I wear American clothes that I speak like an American, right? I speak English? It's just kind of an interesting thing. I went to a conference a long time ago when I was just starting out. I think I was still a doctoral student, and I was putting together my understanding of race, and I began to realize that the traditional way of understanding race, particularly when it came to Asians, was extremely problematic. So I went to this conference, and after I presented my paper, I rushed over to this other one. But it was a topic that was near and dear to my heart. It had something to do with um, the assimilation process of Asians in America. And I disagreed with assimilation, and so I wanted to go hear what this person had to say. Would there be anything new? Would there be a fresh approach to the way people understood things? And so I went there. I heard the presentation, and basically the argument was that when Asians learn to speak English fluently, when they take on American cultural habits, that's when they'll be assimilated as American. And so in the question and answer time, I got up and I said, hey, look at me, right? Because I was towards the back because I came in late. And I said, emphasize, I said, look at me. And everyone turned around and looked at me. And I said, look at me. I am Asian, but I speak English fluently. I don't have an accent. I dress like an American. I'm punctual like an American. Okay, does that mean I am an American? And everyone was nodding their heads, saying, yeah, yeah, you've assimilated nicely. And then I said, no, because I had to prove to you that I was assimilated. And then they had scratching their heads. They didn't get it, right? In other words, when you look at me, the first thing that you're going to see is an Asian dude, right? And whatever racialization, whatever generalization, whatever categorization you have, that's where you're going to start your judgment, your understanding of who I am. If you've never met an Asian in your life, are you being a racist for making assumptions based on what you've seen on TV or read in books? Does that make you racist? I don't think so. And keep in mind, too, that when you break someone's expectation, right? So someone has a stereotypical understanding of your kind, right? And then you are totally different. You break the stereotype for that person. Okay. And it either makes a person interesting or funny. All right. Emphasis on the funny. There's a Korean comedian. His name is Henry Cho. I first saw him decades ago, but he tells a story of how he went to Korea with his dad. And I think I know his dad, right? At least my family knew his dad, right? Just because of where he was from. And he said that his father was a big academic. I think my dad knew who his dad was. But anyway, we're around the same age, I think. And so he said he was in Korea and he's 6'1", right? So he's really tall for a Korean in the 80s. Okay, extremely tall. And so he said he was waiting at a bus stop in Korea, and this American girl comes up to him, of all people, and says, is thisy the placey where you get a bussy, right? And so Henry Cho looks at her and says, I reckon so, which is hilarious, right? But in that joke, you see everything, the stereotype. Like, why wouldn't this lost American girl who can't speak a lick of Korean look all around her and see only Korean speaking people, people who don't understand English. But here's the thing, a lot of people know basic English in Korea because they're forced to study it when they're in school, and it's everywhere, okay? But it's a pretty funny story. So again, breaking a stereotype can make you extremely interesting, leading to more conversation. Like, how is it that you break my stereotype? Why are you not like everybody else? Or it's really funny, just like the way Henry Cho told his story. And if you've never heard his routine, you can just go to YouTube, type up Henry Cho, comedian, and there's a lot of he has a lot of videos. And what makes it funnier is that he was raised in Tennessee, and so he has a very, very thick Southern accent, which when I saw it for the first time was really interesting. Like I saw this when I was in Korea, when I was just finished high school, I saw this girl from Georgia, and it was the first time I ever saw an Asian person greet someone by saying howdy. It was pretty it was interesting. And so I had my a lot of my stereotypes broken when in that one summer when I met Koreans who were living all over America. It was a pretty interesting, eye-opening experience. And then, final last story, just to show you just how outrageous it is to call someone a racist for assuming that certain characteristics belong to you because of their own personal experiences. So, when I was a student, I won't specify when or where, but because I think they're still teaching. But I had a professor once who told me who basically told everyone in the class, look, I don't want creative thinking. I just want you to regurgitate everything I say to you, okay? Don't try to analyze anything. Just tell me what I told you. And I was like, man, this will be the easiest class ever. All you have to do is take verbatim notes and you got an easy A. And so, since he spoke with an accent, a lot of my fellow students who are from other areas of the world, like Germany or Puerto Rico, they didn't understand what he was saying. Even though to me it was perfect English, it just had an accent. And so, what I did was, at the time, because I was trying to relearn how to study, I was taking verbatim notes. I wrote down everything, okay? I typed down everything, excuse me. And then I printed it out and anyone who wanted a copy of my perfect notes, right? Because I recorded the lecture too, and I spent hours just typing and listening to the recordings. And I shared it with pretty much half the class, right? And then we got our exams. They were take-home exams. And so basically it was open notes, right? But what the teacher didn't know was everyone had my notes. And so I was like, man, I got this in the bag. People were asking me for help and stuff. And so I was helping everyone answer guiding them for where to find the answer or how to approach to answer the question. And then we got our test back. Uh, Everyone I helped got an A and I got a B. Now you might say, well, B is okay. In my program, if you don't consistently get A's, you cannot get you can't get a degree. All right, I'll tell you, I can't get a doctorate. And so here was a B. It was like you may as well have given me an F. Okay. And so I met with them and I said, hey, and he still didn't know that everyone had my notes. Everyone he gave an A to did it by using my notes, right? And so I met with him and he basically said that if I don't learn to speak English, I'm not going to be able to graduate, which which left me dumbfounded. And I told some other professors that I got along with that this is what he said to me. And I think eventually he heard, right? But basically, he saw me, saw my Asian face, even though he heard me, right? He has an accent, I do not. And he told me that my English is not good enough. Okay. So it was kind of an interesting thing, right? Some of my friends were like, I can't take your notes now. You're basically failing. And so I said, look, if I fail this program, it will not be because I help people. So take the notes. And so I continued to distribute the notes. I didn't care. So basically, everyone has their own subjectivity. But when you encounter someone's subjectivity, which is different than yours, it's an opportunity to learn about that person without even asking, right? Everything someone says reveals their subjectivity to you, right? Uh, it reveals their experiences, what they've been exposed to, potentially anyway. And it tells you what that person thinks based on their experiences that they had. And the whole time you're sizing up and gathering all this information on this person that's speaking with you, you're judging that person too, right? You are critiquing this person. Is this a person I want to continue to talk to? Is this a person? Is this a pleasant conversation? Is this a person that I never want to see again? Right? We're constantly doing this. We cannot but do it, right? I mean, how do you describe someone? Oh yeah, it was you see that the new Asian that came to class yesterday. Which one? Oh, the one that had an accent. Oh, how dare you? Excuse me. He did have an accent, right? And so how do you avoid describing someone if you have to leave out important characteristics, right? And so, and this was happening for a while, right? Where the joke was, the police get on the radio and they try to describe the suspect, right? Catch the suspect, but they can't describe him because all of the words that they would use are politically incorrect, right? And I think it reached a point of ridiculousness, which is why, you know, uh, certain words and expressions are once again permitted. But it did get pretty ridiculous. Like, oh no, you can't say that's offensive, that's offensive, that's offensive. And today we basically see that in certain areas, certain descriptions with certain people, yeah, everything is basically offensive. So what do we got to do? People got to learn how to chill again, right? Rather than try to take the opportunity to signal virtue, right? To scream at someone so that makes you feel good about yourself. Like, yeah, I put that person in their place, and in the process make a lot of other people feel bad. So chill, right? Realize that it was just all of this understanding that you think is the truth is basically a bunch of professors trying to get tenure, trying to get published. And so they're going to print all this subjective information, all this subjectivity as if it's absolute, as if it is the truth, capital T, not their own personal subjective truth, right? And so the more people figure this out, the faster we can get past this toxic phase of uh, human life on Earth right now. That's it for today. I will talk to you guys next time.